As Midwest farmers gear up for spring fieldwork, Mother Nature might have other plans. While some are eager to plant early to stay ahead of some potential crop stress, Eric Snodgrass, principal atmospheric scientist for Conduit, says there's still plenty of uncertainty in the forecast. I'm Charity Seebecker for the Midwest Farm Report, and with drought concerns still looming and global weather patterns shifting, Eric joins Pam Yaki to break down what farmers should keep an eye on in the weeks ahead.
There's a lot of folks that are out ripping stuff out early this year, and they're thinking, gosh, if I can get in now, maybe avoid some stress later, I'm going to do it. You know, it's still mid-March, though. We've got to be careful on this, and we do have several large systems kind of queued up to come across the country. Now, look, this is what I wanted. I wanted to have a pretty active March in order to undo all the worries we had last time we talked about drought. So while we have a big system coming through at the end of this week, I mean, a big one, which could put some snow across parts of Wisconsin, severe weather maybe in southern Wisconsin, but in Illinois all the way down to the mid-south. I need 5 more. If we get 5 more systems like the one that's going to be coming through the end of this week, I won't be talking about drought again until late in summer. So we need a crazy March into an early April. Unfortunately, that means we won't get a whole lot of else done, but at least undo some of these bigger systematic worries we've had.
Are you keeping an eye on anything else globally speaking, Eric? Because I know it's all relative.
Absolutely. So the big thing is the Pacific for me, honestly. So the Pacific finally got going, and this is what's made this early March so active. It needs to stay that way and not kind of give up maybe until we're at late summer. I mean, that'd be ideal. Then there wouldn't be any talk of drought. We'd all have incredible rains and do quite well. But globally, what's causing it? It's a mixture of things. Is La Nina fading important? Yes. So La Nina is on its way out very quickly. We know some historical precedent for that, and that generally means that we do have drier risks in summer, but it's not a slam dunk. It's 6 and 10 years where this happens, we tend to go a little drier. But is it the kind of drought that robs yield? Is it the kind of drought and heat that stresses our dairy industry? Those are all questions we still have yet to answer, and we're just not there yet. It's just too far away to kind of pin all that down. But I am watching several things globally, and one of them is La Nina. The other thing is South America. They're going to plant a safrinha crop.
Yeah.
They've got it planted, and we want to know if it's going to be big, small, in between, and weather's usually the dominant factor there. And so we're going to be watching to see if any early April dryness hits the key growing areas, especially with some heat. That could peel back those numbers right about the time we're planting a crop here. So there's a whole lot, and I just tell you this is the way I think of it. Everything is spring-loaded. It's like tightened up real tight right now. Will it get let out easy, or will it just explode? That's what we're going to try to figure out.
Let's talk a little bit about, we've all heard about federal funding freezes. There's the tariffs. Everything's making headlines. Weather is being impacted by that, not as far as patterns, but as far as staffing. Tell me a little bit about the technology the average consumer and farmer is unaware is clicking on behind the scenes. Are we to the point with technology where people are less important in the system? Eric, give me a little perspective on what I don't know about the technology and how your weather world works.
Well, I'll first say this. If we didn't have NOAA, you wouldn't have access to probably 95% of the weather that you normally consume. So they're mission critical to the success of the Department of Commerce and then their mission, which is to protect life and property of the U.S. citizenry. I'll also tell you this. NOAA did have, there was a survey done last year that looked at parts of the federal government and how efficient they worked. NOAA was by far the top ranked. So, when we see some of these services being impacted, it of course raises ears. I mean, I get worried about this. Is my industry, right? So I'm going to look at it very closely, and there are some things that concern me about maybe some of the early decisions, but the reality is that I think there'd be a massive outcry from the U.S. populace if we start to see reduction in the services that our taxpayer money is paid for with respect to weather analysis and forecasting. We do have the best one in the world. No other country even comes close to competing with what NOAA does. All of that being said, are they replaceable? Well, there's an interesting thing about weather forecasting in that human intuition and institutional knowledge has not yet been replicated with computing systems, be it AI, be it whatever. And as a result, if we're not there to kind of understand the nuances of the pattern, the chaos in the system, the nonlinearity, then these forecasts, they get bad. They're just not good at all. So this is great. It's a great thing. That means job security. I'll continue to work because we need people to tell the narrative around the data. And we also need people to build the systems that interpret the data. So while there's been incredible advancements in AI, we still have a massive need for the human forecaster to interpret all of this and to make sense of it.
I know that's your world, programming and trying to make sense of it all. I'd never thought about weather systems, technology, outside of the United States. That must be difficult when it comes to figuring out global patterns.
Well, you know what's interesting about weather outside the United States is that even through the heart of the Cold War, weather information was still shared by us and the Russians.
Oh, yeah.
We still share weather data with the Chinese. I mean, even you could be in the middle of a war, but we all still share weather data, which is an amazing thing. It's a human contribution to understand this one source of risk, the atmosphere, and we do that quite well, which means we're able to run global models. We're able to look at weather all around the world and try to assess and learn what it's going to do next. And so because of that global collaboration, we're able to do what we do and do it well. So yeah, I can watch weather in South America and Australia and all of Asia and Europe and keep a close eye on it because of that global collaboration.
When it comes to investment in technology, be it AI or others, are governments, nonprofits, people purely interested in the weather continuing to advance as quickly as commercial product?
No, the government, is advancing much, much, much faster than what the commercial product is through. And that's because the government has the support network, the data infrastructure, the ability to get the content out that the private industry just doesn't have. Now, there are segments of the private industry that do have some of this, but they don't match the quality control that government currently has. That being said, I will tell you, back in 2023, I did testify before Congress on a spending bill for NOAA. It had bipartisan support. There was no issue. They were going to do a spending increase. And they asked us, where should they spend the money? And I said, well, you should spend the money on infrastructure, so weather systems. People demand those weather systems to collect highly accurate data. And then you should put it into the infrastructure side on the computing so we can do a better job using all of that data to predict the future state of the atmosphere. And it was an amazing experience. There was absolutely no pushback from either party. They were actually all there together, and we decided that it was the right thing to do, was to increase NOAA's budget going forward. And who led that was a Republican, but the senior person on the Democratic side, you would have thought they were best friends. It was a great thing to see our government working together in a bipartisan way to support something that threatens the U.S., which is adverse weather.
When you start putting models together, Eric, is there any area where we are particularly weak, where you wish we did a better job? I know in Wisconsin we are launching mesonets to try to get a better ground truth on things. When you look at that, is there a region of the country in the United States? Are there elements, rainfall, snowfall, something like that, where you wish we had a little bit better measurement system, information source?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that was what I actually proposed when I was testifying. I said, look, invest in mesonets in every state. We need to increase the frequency at which we and coverage at which we get the weather data. Where are we worst? Well, we did a study, NOAA did, 125 years worth of forecasting. They found that Rapid City, South Dakota is where they're the worst. I would also say the Intermountain West is very challenging, and the easiest place to forecast is probably San Diego. But where we are here in Wisconsin, it's interesting. You'd actually see differences in the forecasting accuracy as you go way up north. There's a big elevation change. You get into the north woods of Wisconsin. The radar is not good coverage up there. It's difficult to predict. And also down in the southwestern side where we have all the rolling hills, like the Dells area, the elevation actually presents an interesting challenge to forecasting. So Madison, this is great. I can forecast here. But there are a couple spots in the state that are challenging.
Note to self, if you want to criticize your local weather broadcaster on what that forecast looks like. What are you looking forward to this summer, Eric? Because you are a weather watcher nonstop. What are you going to be watching, let's say, after May? And what will be trigger moments for you where you start sounding alarms? I may not see you again until the winter meeting season again.
Well, we'll see if I'm right, but I'll tell you the top thing that I'm going to be watching will be the Gulf of Alaska. So usually, if you look historically, if we're going to see some extreme heat and some drought conditions developing in the upper Midwest, we're going to see the preseason sign will be in late May through June in the Gulf of Alaska. So here it is. If the water temperatures during that time period drop off, if they get colder and colder with time, that's indicating to us that the jet stream's lost its momentum. It tends to build up into big ridges, and they like to sit over the Great Lakes. And if they do that, we have this increased risk of having just drought and heat at the wrong time of year. Now, if those water temperatures warm up, that's an indication that the jet stream is moving. And on the flip side, we tend to do big thunderstorms, plenty of rain, and not so hot temperatures. So the big thing to watch between now and then is the Gulf of Alaska.
That's Eric Snodgrass, Principal Atmospheric Scientist for Conduit, along with us. While farmers are eager to get started in the fields, weather patterns are shaping up for an active spring. So use his advice and approach with caution, as unpredictable weather systems could still shake things up. For the Midwest Farm Report, I'm Charity Seebecker.